Welcome back to Purple Easel Spotlight, where we put the spotlight on artists and creatives. My name's Latoya.
And I'm Megan.
And we're both art instructors here at California's largest paint sip studio, Purple Easel.
So today I want to start us off with a little artist question.
Ooh.
What is a medium that you've always wanted to try?
Ooh. Pottery.
All right.
Pottery. Glass blowing is really cool too. I just feel like anything that has to do with both my hands and like some stuff.
That's an interesting call out. I never really considered the fact like sculpture and ceramics require both hands.
Yeah.
As opposed to drawing or painting, you're just using your dominant hand.
Yeah, but that's something I always thought was cool. So when I was in high school, I was in my art class and we were right next to the clay folks. And I would go to the clay room and I'm like, darn you clay people, I want to get in there. It was so fun. I never got a chance to take the clay classes, but I also love vases. That's probably why. I have like a personal, like, I can't be around any vases. I'll buy them all. I just love them. So yeah, pottery.
All right, awesome. I actually got an opportunity to do ceramics in high school. I did a lot of stuff in high school, actually, but like come my third trimester in school, I think I had like one real class. I had to go to Spanish, and then everything else was art classes or study hall, which I had a permanent pass to the art rooms. But I'll have to show you the hand-thrown vase that I made that I'm quite proud of. It has a little nick out of it, though, because like a dummy, I hung a sword above it, and the sword fell off when somebody closed the door, and so there's like two little chunks missing right out of the top. But it's we'll call it an artistic decision. But you mentioned glass blowing,
Yes.
so that's one of the things I've always wanted to do. In fact, when I was looking at colleges, there was one in Wisconsin that has like a nice glass blowing program, but I don't take the heat very well. Like, I don't like that whole stepping out into an oven feeling that we get here in the Inland Empire. And I think it's a redhead thing too, where you're more susceptible to temperature changes.
True.
General pain threshold is higher, but like
Basically.
heat, yeah, I'm no good for it.
If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen.
Yeah, or the hot shop. So that's a perfect segue into our artists today.
Ooh.
So our first artist today is going to be Louis Comfort Tiffany. And you might not know the name entirely, but you probably know Tiffany and Company, which was his dad. So all part of the same family. And you can see the influences Tiffany the jeweler on his son and throughout his art. So he started off as a painter, as many artists do, and then actually started to transition to glass work.
Okay.
And this is where we get things like Tiffany lamps.
Ooh, I love Tiffany lamps.
Yeah, you know, your local Applebee's probably has one. The one in the Cheers bar is pretty. But you see that kind of style.
If you're that
and
old.
it's all because of Louis. Like, he did that for us.
Wow.
What a gracious guy.
Wow. Amazing. Oh, I like this. I would buy this.
Because you like vases.
Yes, I do.
So this is an example of one of his blown glass works, which is kind of where he started dabbling in glass. And he actually patented opalescent glass, which gives that nice pearly glass. And that didn't exist prior. And I think it really kind of harps back to that jeweler thing with the gemstones, opals, and like how he can combine them. And he actually used a lot of different techniques to create different glass, different oxidations and stuff. And then when he moved into his stained glass pieces, you see a ton of it. And he was very precise of the kind of glass he chose for different portions of his artwork. For example, one of his most famous stained glass works, which is Autumn Landscape, which is at the Met, is like, you can see he used rippled glass for the water portions. He used marbled glass for the sky. He used layers of glass, like thinner layers, and looked at how you can combine different colors to create depth things people were not thinking about prior. Like you think of old church stained glass.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of simple color for each little portion, and like a mosaic type.
Yeah, very 2D.
But he really put so much artistry into it and completely changed the idea of what we think of for stained glass. It's just phenomenal work.
Amazing. Imagine how much time it would take to make this.
It's huge too.
It looks huge.
This is like 2 people tall. And then he's even got one that's at the Art Institute of Chicago that's like 2 stories. It was in a church prior and they got a hold of it. It's beautiful.
That looks so stunning. So one thing that I think is very common within artists is the medium changing. They'll go from doing oils to doing glass to maybe doing something completely different to doing jewelry. And I feel like it's very normal to be kind of in a wide range of things. I myself, I paint on acrylic, but I also do dance and I also spin fans, which is something it's still in the creative realm, but it's definitely different than me with a paint and brush. So I feel like it is very common to see artists go from one medium to like a completely opposite medium.
Yeah. And I think really as an artist, you have so many things to say. You need the right medium in order to say the exact thing that you're trying to. And I think that's what kind of spurs the exploration. Like my pen and ink work, totally different to my acrylic work.
Yeah.
Totally different to my watercolor work. So, it's kind of the mark of death for an artist to like a lot of mediums.
Yeah.
Because commercially, you kind of got to pick one and go with it.
Yes.
But a lot of these classic artists didn't.
Yeah.
Like they did all the things and all the things were cool and popular. In fact, Tiffany later goes on to circle back to the jewelry. Once his father passed away, he was the first art director for Tiffany and Company.
Oh.
And he created some beautiful jewelry pieces, and he really emphasized kind of the less popular gems, just like he also liked the flawed glass.
Okay.
Created more depth. He didn't like the like super clean cut glass. He wanted the stuff with impurities because of the way the light played on it. So that's totally visible in his jewelry pieces.
Wow. And even the whole style, the art that is the glass and the art that is the jewelry is very kind of like Art Nouveau.
Yes.
Very elegant.
Yeah.
Whatever this
Lots
is.
of nature inspired.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very similar.
It is. It totally is. And you can see his point of view despite whatever medium it is.
So far, up-and-coming artists that we want to highlight and spotlight is MiNHi England. And they're from Seattle, and they're also a glass blower and a jeweler.
Yeah, which is a crazy combination when you think about it. But I really liked something that MiNHi posted underneath one of her jewelry pieces was that she just wanted something quick and easy to help her reset artistically. And if you look at this piece, it's stunning. It has some very art qualities. Right.
That's not quick and easy.
And maybe compared to glass blowing.
Yeah.
So you might be familiar with MiNHi if you've watched Blown Away on Netflix. And if you haven't.
Oh, the glass blowing documentary. Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's really a fun watch. Especially for somebody interested in glass blowing. And as much as MiNHi has kind of gotten the spotlight from that, I just thought she was so compelling that I still wanted to include her today because she was very vulnerable when she went on to that particular season of Blown Away because she had become a widow.
Okay.
And she just had this kind of raw authenticity and just, she made you root for her. And as much as we want to separate art from the person, sometimes it's the person that really brings you in. And I think that's kind of what we capitalize on here at Purple Easel.
That's very true. With art instructing, we very much we're trying to teach you how to paint, but we're also bringing in our personality into it to get you to want to come back and paint with us again. But this, I know she said quick and easy, but I'm looking at this and I'm just like, how did you do this quick and easy? But it's amazing.
Yeah.
I can't do stuff like that.
It's beautiful. It really is. But then so is her glasswork.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I'm going to buy that vase because I love vases. I like it. I'm like, okay. I don't know. Something about glass blowing and like the people who do it, it blows my mind because it looks so easy. And I know it's 100% not easy at all. And you have to do it quick and you're like, and you're hot, and you're sweating.
Yeah.
And then you have to work really quick or else like it's not going to mold. That glass isn't going to mold how you want it.
Mm-hmm. And once it starts to cool down, it's like super fragile.
Yeah.
Like do all the things. And there's so many different techniques.
Yes.
This piece in particular employs Venetian technique, which she actually learned from her husband, who she met at glass school.
Aww.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Yeah. And unfortunately, he did pass from cancer. But before he passed, they actually created a business where they called it Artful Ashes, which allowed people to basically incorporate the cremated remains of their loved ones into a glass art piece. And I think that's such a big departure from the urn on the fireplace.
Oh, yeah.
Mantle, and it kind of gives a whole new life to somebody. That's a nice little memento.
I want to go out that way. I want my ashes because I want to be cremated. And I love vases and I love glass wine. This is how I want to go out.
Trifecta.
Yes, this and that. And I think that's just amazing. I see so many people do really cool art stuff with ashes. I don't know. I'm not hating on anyone who has like an urn or anything like that because I have one. But there's just so many different cool things you can do with the ashes nowadays that like
It is, and I think having an artwork.
Yeah.
You know, you're supporting an artist, you're helping create something, you're putting more love into that person. I guess it's kind of like having a really expensive casket. You're just taking up a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
But if you're like my dad, who was a plumber for a good portion of his life, he just wants to be flushed down the toilet. He says it's the perfect send-off. So to each their own. But I think it's a beautiful option.
Very. I think that's amazing. I think she's doing great work.
So one of MiNHi's installations is this really cool, like bubbly formation, and you really get that effect of the blown glass. But in the title is the word reflection, and I think that has so much extra depth. And it reminds me of Louis Comfort Tiffany because he used different types of glass to get different kinds of feelings. And here, MiNHi uses a mirrored glass. So you're seeing all these little distorted versions of yourself as you're viewing it. And it just adds that extra dimension to the art.
It does.
It's so cool to have something that's cool and pretty to look at, but that has a cerebral level to it.
Because we're multifaceted beings. So it's very interesting to like see. You're still seeing yourself, but are you? I don't know. That is really cool.
The hard-hitting questions right here on Purple Easel Spotlight.
Yes. So, Megan, I have a question for you, and it's kind of a basic question, but kind of a deep question.
I'm here for it.
Okay. So what makes an artist an artist? Could anybody just be like, well, I made some pretty pictures one time, I'm an artist, or are you like, I put in the hours, I put in the work, but how much time and work and effort do you have to put into your craft to say, I'm an artist?
Yikes. So that's where you kind of get into the blurred lines between a hobby and like an art form. For me personally, it wasn't until after I had started participating in Inktober and became immersed in that community and started getting validation and stuff that I switched from I'm somebody who draws or paints and doodles or whatever occasionally to calling myself an artist. In fact, it was like a big moment for me when I finally designed and had printed business cards that said artist.
Oh, really good.
And part of that was because I was between other jobs. I had been working retail since I was 15 years old, and I had been with a very well-known toy company for 10 years, and then I wasn't. And I was kind of doing the stay-at-home mom thing because my kid wasn't in school yet. And it's when I really started to discover myself again, because I didn't have the pressure of running a multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah.
And so it really kind of allowed me to get back in touch with that part of myself to the point where I finally felt okay. That doesn't super answer your question because I don't know what the right answer is.
It's an interesting question.
It's a personal thing.
Yes, it is.
Hard thing to kind of get over that hump.
Yeah, it's a personal journey for everyone. So it's a bit of, that's what I was like, it's a little bit of a hard question because there's multiple different answers to it. It really depends on the individual. I feel like there does have to be some like skill and time that you do put into it. Like you said, there is a transition from hobby to this is what I do with my life and this is who I am as a person. Not just like for a career or anything, but that's just who I am. I always call myself like a creative because I do dabble into other things that are creative, not necessarily like art as in like paintbrush and everything. But yeah, I was sorry. It was a little bit of a trick question, but I think it's an important one because it's something we all kind of struggle with as artists.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everyone has their own story about it.
Right. And I mean, you even look at Van Gogh, who didn't sell anything. So you can't even use that as a marker like, oh, I sold some of my work, therefore I'm an artist.
Yeah.
Because he was already gone by the time he sold stuff. And we all consider him one of the most famous artists.
Yes.
So it really, I think, is just a personal thing that you kind of got to put your stamp on.
Yes, agreed. From all of us here at Purple Easel, thank you so much for tuning in.
Make sure to check out our artists, Louis Comfort Tiffany and MiNHi England, in the links below.
Join us at purpleeaselplus.com to paint with the world's largest paint sip studio.
And if you're in Southern California, make sure to swing by the studio. But in the meantime, create more and create often.
Bye.
Sure to stop by our studio, and no matter what.
No matter what, you get here right now.